Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Utility Sports Plus. We are super close to 1,000 subscribers, so you guys know what to do. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more content. Let's get to 1,000. Come on, we can do it on this video for our NFL Week 5 predictions and pick 'em. So stoked, Austin. Let's go get into the records here. And as you guys know, the definition of mediocrity and poor performance has been me in Pick'em over the last 3 years. This year, I'm specifically off to a rough start. I don't know what to attribute that to. I'm going to blame the players and not my stupidity. Okay, players, if I'm picking your team, you guys got to pull it out for me. Okay, they have not been doing that. I'm 37-27. Austin's sitting way prettier, well above that 67% win percentage threshold that you like to see. He is hovering around 75-80%. I think we're both kind of shocked, though, that he's not a little bit closer to 100%. I was kind of expecting, at this point through 4 weeks, a 64-0 record. So it's a little jarring to me, Austin, that you're not perfect at this point. But how would you attribute your success?
Yeah, it's a lot of dumb luck to this point here. I do not attribute anything to myself and the football I watch. So I'm going to say that I got lucky on this first couple of weeks here, but I'm all for week 5. I think this may be when the tides turn and Sheldon is able to, really bite into and chisel into this deficit he has. This is not something he's used to in life. He's not used to being behind.
Yeah, number 2 is way better than I typically finish in most things. So I'm really on a great trajectory at this point. I can't really be mad about that. Now, the nice thing is there's 14 games this week. If Austin goes 0-14, I maybe have a shot at wiggling into a tie here. But Austin, there's only 14 games because there's 4 bye week teams. Let's take a look at who is on bye this week. This is NFL Week 5. So bye week teams now officially are a thing for our pick'em videos. We've got the Browns, Chargers, Buccaneers, and Seahawks all getting some deserved rest early in the season. Austin, real quick, I want to get your take on this. Would you rather have an early bye week, a middle of the year bye week, or one of the end of season type bye weeks that we see throughout the year?
I mean, I think it's always nice when you're able to get some guys rest later on in the season. So to me, I prefer a late bye week. An early bye week is a little bit tough because your team is, quote unquote, relatively healthy. And, when you get that early bye week, the only benefit I really see in an early bye week is getting your team right if you're off to a struggling start. So to me, I would much prefer the mid to later bye weeks.
Yeah, unfortunately for us here, I'm not going to get one of those quote unquote bye weeks. I need one with my type of struggling performance. So let's jump into it now, though, and see how many more games I can fall back this week. Luckily, Thursday Night Football, I'm at least drawing even with Austin. A week ago, I picked the Chicago Bears. Felt super smart. You guys have no idea. Sunday I was feeling so great. They were up 28-7 over the Broncos at the end of the third quarter, essentially. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm finally doing it. I'm going to catch up to Austin. And then the Broncos rattled off what was 24 unanswered points. Ended up winning the game. Justin Fields threw a late interception. And I'm never picking the Chicago Bears again, as long as Justin Fields is the starting quarterback. Felt really, really safe to go with the Commanders here at home, Thursday Night Football. After a crushing loss for the Bears. Austin, why'd you go with Washington here?
I like Washington. The fact that they're at home, I think they're going to be able to run the football effectively, and you're going to see some play action out of it. Terry McLaurin had a breakout game last week against the Philadelphia Eagles. I think he continues that trajectory once again this week against Chicago, and he is going to get a ton of targets, in my opinion, for this game.
Yeah, a tough loss last week for Washington. Obviously, played very, very competitive with the reigning NFC champions in the Philadelphia Eagles, but came up a little bit short. Look at them kind of having a nice bounce back week. They started the season really well. Last couple of games out, they haven't looked their best, but I think that they're going to go out and take care of business here against Chicago. Let's jump into our next one now. We get into the Sunday slate of games. Again, super good, great games this week that I'm looking forward to seeing, and I know you guys are as well. So let's jump into the first one. And we got the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Buffalo Bills. Now, on the thumbnail for this week, I was like, oh, I got to put Josh Allen. And right now, you're all thinking the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen. I'm thinking of the better one, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Josh Allen. And there's a reason you draft a guy like Josh Allen. Austin, you know it better than anyone. It's to get after a guy like Josh Allen for the Buffalo Bills. I think Josh Allen records over 1.5 sacks this week. The Jaguars return to form as Sacksonville. And yes, I picked the Dolphins last week over the Bills. I don't want to talk about that. I'm only focused on picking this Florida team over Buffalo. Jaguars, they're going to storm in. They run the AFC South. You guys know how I feel about this. And they're going to take down the Buffalo Bills. so far through 5 weeks, I picked the Jaguars 5 times. I'm definitely not attributing my poor record to that. In fact, I'm going to double down on that and just continue to pick them when times are tough. Austin, I don't see it with the Bills. Talk me through that game.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Jacksonville has shown that they're going to get smoked in this game. No, I don't understand the logic in this. They're on the road, for God's sakes. Like, I really don't understand why you would take them on the road. You have so much false confidence in this team, and it's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing. Yeah, hold on. There he is. He's looking to defend himself, but this is a terrible pick. Maybe this gets clipped later when, Buffalo inevitably loses, but wow. I don't see it. I really don't, especially against how you saw them play against Miami. I mean, sure, okay, the Jags beat up on the Falcons in London. That was their home turf.
Listen, the Bills have great coaching. They do. But unless Doug Peterson's trotting across the field to the other sideline to coach that game, I don't care. Give me the offensive mastermind. Give me Evan Ingram. Give me the Trevor Lawrence generational QB, number 1 on Austin's draft board in his own draft class. Give me that guy. Okay, that's what I'm taking here in this game. Let's jump into the next one. We're wasting too much time. Everyone knows Jacksonville's winning that game. Bills fans, comment down below if you think I'm stupid. Houston here, they headed to Atlanta to take on what was a pretty fun matchup, I think, on paper here between two teams that, look, the Houston Texans are playing great football. Right now, there's only 2 QBs in the NFL with over 1,000 passing yards and 0 interceptions. One of them is Brock Purdy for the San Francisco 49ers. The other one is CJ Stroud for the Houston Texans. And I think so far, Austin, with everything we've talked about on and off camera, the reviews on him have to be A+ returns early on at this stage of his career for Houston. He had a massive game this past week. The Texans rolled the Steelers, and he put up over 300 yards passing in that game. So obviously a lot to ride on there. But for me, Austin, you know how I feel about Atlanta and Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith just wins games. He's going to come in, and for a guy like Arthur Smith, who I think they always overperform their roster talent, you just have to win games like this at home against a team that is still relatively young and kind of searching their long-term identity. I think the Texans have a lot to play for. I think they're a good young team, but Atlanta's got to win some games, and Arthur Smith constantly does that. Austin, why do you got Houston here?
To me, I look at CJ Stroud and his development throughout the course of the season, which he is off to an incredible start, at that a historic start. I see that continuing here. Atlanta has some issues on this defense that I think are exposable. Now, more so, this pick is reliant on the idea that Desmond Ridder has struggled mightily so far throughout the course of the season, to the point where he just looked lost against Jacksonville. That defense is subpar for the Jags, but I look at this as an opportunity for CJ Stroud to have a big game through the air. Dameon Pierce should have a nice rushing day as well, but Atlanta has a nice counter to that. They have a good rushing attack. Bijan Robinson probably will eclipse 120 yards, in my opinion.
Last thing I heard Austin say in that entire spiel was that a quarterback looked lost against Jacksonville. I'm going to take that and run with it here. Let's jump forward into the next game we've got at this point, and that's the Carolina Panthers heading into Detroit. And look, if you go back to even the end of last year's pick'em and kind of some of the mock drafts last year, you would hear us be really, really positive about Detroit. And, well, we've been right. The Detroit Lions are a team that at this point early on in the year, they're 3-1. They've played some really great football. I know people are upset about David Montgomery. You see those fantasy football counselors on Twitter freaking out, hoping an injury upon him. Look, this is smart by the Lions. Everything they're doing coaching-wise, first of all, they're preserving their young running back, Jahmyr Gibbs, especially as the season goes on. As guys get fatigued and tired, they're going to have this crazy electric back who is still fresh because of the way they've been managing his touches and carries and snaps. And then they also have the actual bell cow who is giving them production in David Montgomery. It's a win-win scenario for the Lions. I think the Panthers are going to struggle to slow this team down. Even last week, the Panthers, they jumped out to an early lead against Minnesota, couldn't hold on to that one. And I think Minnesota is a significantly lesser team than the Detroit Lions. So for that reason, at home here, it feels like the Lions are free money. If you're picking money line this week, I really like them in this game. Austin, why did you go with Detroit over Carolina?
I think when you look at Carolina, the issues are very evident, especially against, defending the run, which when you go back to that Minnesota game, both Alexander Mattison and Cam Akers were gashing this defense, which was unfortunate to see for the Panthers fans. They put a lot of stock into the Bryce Young trade, right? They gave up a lot to move up. which a lot of people, felt it was warranted, but it's very tough for Panthers fans to look at it and say, wow, we moved all the way up to number one and we did not elect to select CJ Stroud, which was not a questionable decision at the time, but now kind of sitting back, it's so early. So let's not jump off of Bryce Young yet, but I just think that there are some fans that are disappointed. This team has potential. They absolutely do. They have some good playmakers. They have some guys that are going to be really fun moving forward. But at the end of the day, right now, they're struggling to find a rhythm. They're struggling to find a flow of an offense. And defensively, they have some key issues. Detroit is starting to fire on all cylinders here. I think they're starting to gain that momentum that they need. You saw that against Green Bay, how good they were on that Thursday night matchup. I think it's going to carry into this game. They're playing at home, defending Ford Field. This team's ready to rock and roll.
Yeah, especially when you consider that Bryce Young, taking him at pick 1, it definitely hurts too when picks 2 and 4 in CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson have been so good, so dynamic, so kind of elite even with how young and, obviously talented they are. But like you said, the early returns are not indicative of how these guys' entire careers are going to go. Of course, you'd like to see your number 1 pick flashing and carrying you to wins. But the reality is this Panthers team is just, probably not ready for that yet. Of course, they do have to owe a pick to Chicago this year, but they're also a team that they're going to have other opportunities to continue to build this up and trend in the right direction moving forward. Let's jump to our next game. We look at one here between the Tennessee Titans and the Indianapolis Colts, staying in the AFC South. And I was just talking about Anthony Richardson. Man, that guy is literally made of dynamite. He is so electric, so dynamic, and explosive. Some of the plays that he makes with his feet, not even necessarily running the football, but using his feet to kind of preserve the pocket and maybe extend his time to make a decision with the football. You think to one of his touchdowns down in the deep red zone last week as an example of that. I mean, he's just a very, very, very good football player. Austin, I know you loved him. I think he was number 1 on your board, or at least from the quarterback position in this past draft. Talk about what you've seen from him so far and then why you prefer them over Tennessee, who did have a nice win last week against Cincinnati.
I mean, starting with Tennessee here, I know I did pick the Colts, but it was, to me, not the easiest decision. Now you have a divisional game. You're playing in Indianapolis. I lean to go with the Colts because of the dynamic playmaking ability of Anthony Richardson. And I think Tennessee has been able to put together a couple things that make some sense. They were able to dominate against the Cincinnati Bengals. But at the end of the day, to me, with what I've seen from Shane Steichen in this offense here with Anthony Richardson, they have found a winning formula potentially. They were right in that Rams game last week. They were down big, and then they ended up coming back and making that a very competitive game. To me, I think this is going to be a close game. I think this is going to be likely a 3-point game. But at the end of the day, I think Indianapolis gets the job done at home.
Yeah, Austin's a registered Shane Steichen fan. You heard it here on the channel. So he's really big on those Colts and that offensive game plan that they've got week in, week out. Let's jump into our next one. We see a matchup here between the Miami Dolphins and the New York Giants. This game is going to take place down in South Florida. And the Giants, look, Monday Night Football game for them. They get one less day of preparation here in this matchup. And I would have preferred the Miami Dolphins to begin with. Now, listen, the Dolphins got trounced by the Buffalo Bills. Not a great showing from them after we both picked them a week ago. Probably looking at this as kind of a bounce back game and probably a lesser New York opponent. Obviously, Buffalo is so tough. The Giants, a little bit of a lesser opponent at this point of the season, we'd have to guess, right, Austin?
Yeah, I think Miami is just going to be too dynamic to keep up with. Buffalo had that it factor on offense. Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, they have some big play ability. The Giants a little less. They don't have that down the field threat right now. They don't have an established, passing attack that's going to be able to keep up with Miami. Now, I think people are a little bit too low on the Giants at this point, but at the end of the day, I feel a lot of confidence in moving forward with the Dolphins. They have so much playmaking ability, so much big plays. There's a lot to love about what they put together in terms of the archetype of players. You look at the speed running backs. They have 3 guys that you feel very confident with moving forward. You have the 2 dynamic receivers in Hill and Waddle. This is a great group of playmakers for Tua, and I think that's going to continue here despite some concerns after last week. In that Buffalo game, but their offense still is good. They should get the job done.
Yeah, a true test of talent here on the offensive side of the football for the Dolphins. Again, I expect them to win this game. I wouldn't say handedly, but I think that they're going to control this football game, likely from start to finish, and hopefully give their home fans something to root for in this one. Our next football game here, we've got the New Orleans Saints heading into Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots. Look, last week I picked the Saints. They let me down. And just this type of game here, New England in October, it just feels like a game the Patriots are going to win, especially as the Saints are kind of up and down a bit this season. And for me, the Patriots, there are still a lot of great things that they do. One thing I want to point to is watch for this team to make some additions of some guys who have been maybe let go or released in recent weeks, and players to keep our eyes on in terms of the trade block as well. We're going to have future content on that too. But when it comes to the Patriots here and what they currently have on the roster, look, not a good showing from them this week either. Mac Jones gets pulled out of the game early. They lose big time. I think it's a great bounce back opportunity. You get another team that's kind of stumbling out of the gate here. You can probably try and right the ship early on. Austin, we talked about how important bye weeks can be for that. Sometimes having an actual game and opponent right in front of you to try and focus on specific things, take advantage of certain matchups. And I think the Patriots are going to hunt for those types of things, just like Bill Belichick has done throughout his coaching career. That's why I'm going with the Patriots here in this one. What do you like about this game? What are some matchups to watch, and why did you land on New England?
I think it's pretty tough to beat New England, obviously, on the road. So New Orleans is going to have their hands full to begin with. They had an actual poor showing against Tampa Bay, especially in that first half of the football game. Just not impressive through and through. Chris Olave in the entire game was held to one catch for 4 yards, which was another surprise, when watching that one. But looking at New England, they're going to have to really rely on Ramondre Stevenson carrying the rock. I think that is going to be the key to success for them, getting him involved in the screen game as well. He needs to be that workhorse volume back for them in this football game. To me, an at-home game in the month of, October, this screams Patriots football. This screams bounce back. And if we think about Bill Belichick, historically speaking, he's so tough to beat at home, regardless of what the roster looks like and how recent weeks leading up to it have looked like as well. So to me, New England is not the easiest choice to make, because I was back and forth, to be completely transparent on this one. But I think with them being at home, it definitely gives them the edge. Gillette's a very, very tough place to go and get a victory, in the fall months.
This is an exciting football game, especially when you consider two teams kind of desperate and looking for a win right now at this point of the season to kind of further their chances of at least extending their season and have something really meaningful to play for going forward. Let's jump forward into our next game now. We look at a matchup here between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Austin, we were talking about kind of fall football. An AFC North matchup here between Baltimore and Pittsburgh just kind of fits that type of vibe. And we both landed on the Ravens here. Look, the Steelers have not been playing very well. In our Utility Sports Discord, link is in the description, by the way. Go join that so you can talk some NFL football with a bunch of awesome people. That link's in the description. Go join that Discord. They've been talking about how, I've seen some crazy usernames. Fire Tomlin's an example of that. Mike Tomlin's given a lot of stability to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but this year they're just not getting it done in typical Mike Tomlin fashion, which has some fans clamoring for a change of scenery, maybe a new guy in the coach's office. Austin, what's your thoughts on that situation, Mike Tomlin in general, and then why get into this game and why'd you land on Baltimore here?
We've gone through this cycle year in, year out with Mike Tomlin, and I understand people's frustration in not making deep postseason runs, but what he does is he's consistent and gets his team there. He gets them in the mix. Now, I think Baltimore had a phenomenal showing against Cleveland in a lot of facets of the game. They were impressive in that one to me. And Pittsburgh was the exact opposite. I mean, they just looked out of sorts against Houston last week. That was very problematic. And against a team like Houston, I get that they were, on the road trying to get a victory, but they just didn't look good. That offensive line struggled. There's a lot of facets of this team that I actually have legitimate concern over. So to me, with how Baltimore played last week, them going on the road, ideally, you would pick Pittsburgh in, a AFC North matchup, middle of the year or at the beginning of a year. And to me, I don't see that really being the case with how they played as of recently, extending back to even that Raiders game. They just haven't looked like the same old Steelers. There's some clear and obvious issues that have to be cleaned up offensively, defensively, but more specifically on the offensive end, I do have some concerns.
Yeah, you're kind of looking at different ends of the spectrum here with the most recent week and how it played out. So the Steelers have some work ahead of them. Hopefully it's a big wake-up call of, look, we are not playing anywhere close to our best brand of football. Hopefully they can come in and, try and exploit some certain things that they'd like to take advantage of in this one. But the Ravens probably a little bit too tough here, even on the road. Let's jump forward into our next game. We see a matchup here between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Arizona Cardinals. And Austin, if we hit the pause button here and you said, Sheldon, week 5 game, Bengals at Cardinals, who are you picking? Before the season, I would say Bengals 100 out of 100 times. Bengals are not playing good football right now, and I am shocked that I'm sitting here picking the Arizona Cardinals in a week 5 game. I just can't really believe that. The Cardinals have been competitive to their credit this year. They've had, a nice upset win over Dallas. They've also been in some close competitive football games. That's kind of a credit to what they're doing out there. They don't really have the talent to be good, but they're at least competing, and that's something you like to see from a team. Cincinnati has the talent to be great. We've seen it in the last couple of years. They have been great. And now what we've been seeing is Jamar Chase in post-game interviews saying, I'm open, throw me the dang football. And there's a little bit of a disconnect right now between some of the players, head coaches. Obviously, they're not getting the results that they want. Austin, how disruptive can that be to a locker room? And then why did you still stick with Cincy in this one?
And to me, it's tough because I don't like Arizona's roster in any capacity. I think that there's got to be a turning point with the Bengals. I thought that was going to come last week. There's something wrong. There's something wrong. Obviously, with Joe Burrow's health, I think that's probably the singular most important thing to highlight in this entire video is him unable to maneuver the pocket, climb the pocket the way he normally does is actually huge in terms of his play style. He's not able to locate the football right now. He's not able to, accurately deliver balls when need be. The timing's off. All of it seems off right now. However, they have the talent to overcome some of those deficiency and the chemistry issues. That should be the case here this week. This might be a get-right game for the Bengals. A lot of people might clown me for actually picking the Bengals with how poorly they've played, but at the end of the day, I do have some issues with the Arizona Cardinals as well. This is not a talented football team, and they're a team that's definitely vulnerable on both sides of the football.
To be honest, I can't blame you or fault you at all for picking Cincinnati. On paper, it is the obvious, clear, transparent choice. They are just significantly better talent-wise across the board, pretty much at nearly every single position, seemingly. Yet the game's played on turf. I'm unsure about the Bengals right now. Maybe call me a prisoner of the moment picking against them here. But I think this is going to be an interesting matchup and one that, honestly, at this point of the year, Cincinnati needs to get a win in this game to kind of right some of the wrongs that they have early on here. Let's jump forward now into our next game, and we're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles traveling into LA to take on the Rams. And Austin, before the season started, I was higher on the Rams than most people. I thought they were kind of destined for a bounce back season. They have played fairly well up to this point. The Eagles haven't even played their best brand of football. They are 4-0, one of 2 remaining undefeated NFL teams at this point of the season. And look, I expect that trend to continue. The Rams, I think they're playing good football. I think they're doing a lot of things relatively well compared to last season. But the Eagles, even though they're not playing their best, they're still finding a way to win games. That's what we expect from this team. That's what we expect from a team we see potentially winning the NFC once again this year. Why'd you go with the Eagles here in this one at SoFi Stadium?
Absolutely. And I think, the fact that it's played at SoFi definitely has a little bit of effect on it. It's like, okay, maybe you do actually stick to the home team Rams just because of, how they've played and how they've surprised some people. But I go with the better talented team, the team I trust more. On that front seven, they absolutely get after the quarterback. So Matt Stafford is going to have his hands full all game long. And I firmly do believe that they're going to sack him several times. They're going to create, a couple turnovers. I think he might throw 2 picks in this game. So that's how I feel about this team because Philly can get after it. They have a lot of rotational pass rushers. They have guys in the back end that can make some plays and create havoc. To me, that's exactly how you have to look at it. And the fact that A.J. Brown just absolutely erupted last week, I think that is going to be the case once again this week. He's going to have a huge pivotal role in terms of, going to victory lane here for the Philadelphia Eagles.
The Eagles and the Rams are the 2 most recent NFC teams to appear in the Super Bowl. Of course, always fun when we get a matchup between 2 teams like this during the regular season. Let's jump forward now into our next game. We see a matchup here between my New York Jets and the Denver Broncos. And someone pause the video right now, take a screenshot. Austin picked the Jets. Austin, before we even start talking about this game, can I get a JETS Jets from you?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that until they prove me right. So I'm going to have to hold up on that. I want to talk about this game. I want to take the reins because I feel very passionate that they got absolutely screwed against the Kansas City Chiefs. They did. And you know what I do love about this team? Zach Wilson's maturity level in the post game press conference. That was huge for me. Seeing him take accountability, knowing he made some mistakes, and really took that entire accountability. Now, maybe that's the PR team saying, hey, you better take some of the heat here because it's going to be coming at you in this interview. Whatever they did, they prepped him right because he just sounded awesome in that. And I think the Jets are just so talented across the board. I believe in this team still. Denver, okay, I get the comeback against Chicago. I'm not excited. I'm still not excited. Let Russ cook. Let him cook one. I'm not in. I'm absolutely not in on the Broncos. Their defense has been atrocious, and I mean atrocious the last 2 weeks. However, I think the Jets have a really good opportunity to right some of the wrongs from the beginning of the season, and they're going to get a bounce back win on the road. Shout out to the Jets.
Remember, before the year, this was a highly anticipated matchup. You had Sean Payton going in interviews saying how poorly Nathaniel Hackett coached the Broncos last year. Doesn't look like Sean Payton's doing much better. You had Aaron Rodgers clapping back. Aaron Rodgers isn't doing much better right now. This matchup isn't quite what I think we had hoped it would be by week 5 this week, just looking at kind of the injuries and some of the truths that have played out over this early part of the season. Austin, you're going with the Jets. Again, I'm shocked here. You hadn't picked them all year despite, being super high on them being a potential Super Bowl caliber team. His words, not mine. But ultimately, I land on the Broncos here because I'm a Jets truther. And I've seen this team not be good for over a decade. In fact, 12 years was the last time we've made the NFL playoffs. So the Broncos, look, they've had their own problems. They haven't made the playoffs for a while either. But I'd pick them in this one. They're at home. Zach Wilson had a magical game. I would even say on Sunday night, don't expect that to continue. I would be pretty shocked if it does. And in fact, it's pretty pretty good that it ended in a fumble for him as well. It's just kind of the way that things go with the New York Jets quarterback position. Let's get on to the next one here. I don't want to depress people with Jets football any longer. And we got the team that benefited with that holding call you brought up, the Kansas City Chiefs. They now head into US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Minnesota to take on the Vikings. And look, the Vikings, they get into the win column with a win that I don't know if you deem it as pretty, Austin, but they got a win nonetheless against the Panthers. They really badly needed that. Early in the season, they moved to 1-3. The Chiefs are 3-1, playing some really good football. They're 2-0. As Swifties, as the NFL media page would make sure you know by putting that in their bio. Austin, highlight this matchup. Do you think the Vikings are headed in the right direction, or is it kind of just, hey, they beat a bad Carolina Panthers football team?
Yeah, I mean, they really beat a bad Carolina Panthers team that had some mistakes. And clearly, people need to realize that this very well could have been the Panthers' victory, and we would be talking about the Vikings in major panic mode at 0-4. It's still major panic mode at 1-3. This is not a good football team. Defensively, they're bad. Offensively, they turn over the ball way too much. Once again, a pick six by Kirk Cousins was pretty obvious that in that game where he just isn't right now. There's just too many turnovers from him. He has to stop fumbling the ball himself. The team's got to stop fumbling the ball. There's some issues across the board, and I just don't trust this team moving forward. I have zero confidence in them. And I think that this is the easiest game to pick of the week.
Vikings cornerback Byron Murphy allegedly said that he's going to try and get in Travis Kelce's head by talking about Taylor Swift. One thing I'm going to say about that, Byron Murphy, you're going to have a lot of opportunities to talk to Travis Kelce while he's moving the chains if this is anything like facing Keenan Allen a couple weeks back. Let's jump forward now into our next one here, and we see a matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco 49ers. And this is perhaps the game of the week. Really good football teams. And of course, historic football teams that have seen each other in the past quite a ton. Two real contenders in the NFC. The Cowboys, they head into San Francisco to take on the Niners here. And this is a good matchup and one that football fans are going to really enjoy. Christian McCaffrey coming off of a huge week. You'll have seen him in the thumbnail of this video. Austin, what did you think about kind of the Niners-Cowboys matchup here, and then why'd you land on San Fran for this one?
I think San Fran is going to give Dallas some issues, rushing the quarterback, but I think vice versa. When you look at Micah Parsons and Nick Bosa, this is a tremendous matchup amongst two of the best players in the NFC in totality. So I look at it as two guys that could potentially win Defensive Player of the Year this year, and they're squaring off against one another. This is the best matchup of the week. I love what we have to watch in this one. Brock Purdy is going to have to take care of the football, as well as Dak Prescott. Running the football is going to be very, very key for both of these teams. Leading into play action is huge. Now, I think that San Francisco gets the edge, them being at home. I like their defense right now, how they're playing, but Dallas has shocked a lot of people with how hot they started out of the gate. Obviously, the hiccup against Arizona was shocking, but I don't think that is exactly what this team is. San Francisco's hot. They're a team that can win big games. They're not afraid of the moment. Kyle Shanahan teams are not afraid of that moment. And that's not going to be the case here against the Cowboys. To me, San Francisco offers a lot of unique challenges when trying to defend them, specifically Christian McCaffrey, who seemingly gets in the end zone every single week. Every time he's on a football field, he finds the end zone, and I expect that to continue in this game.
Such a talented player. And hey, call me crazy here, but I think the quarterback position is a little bit of an X factor in this one as well. I know you talked about pressure and getting after the QB, limiting the run game. Those things are all super important. But earlier in this episode, I talked about Brock Purdy being one of 2 QBs in the NFL right now to have over 1,000 pass yards and 0 interceptions. And we know throughout Dak's recent career specifically, there's been at moments, times where he's a little turnover prone, doesn't read the defense, doesn't see a guy lurking across the middle of the field. And I think opportunistic football for San Francisco could be huge in this one. If they can generate 1 or 2 turnovers, take care of the football themselves, that's going to go a long way in this matchup, and I think ultimately decides the football game in a close, hard-fought win for the Niners. Let's jump forward into our next game, and it's another fun one, Monday Night Football. We got the Las Vegas Raiders. We're going to be at Allegiant Stadium here for this one, and the Packers head into town. Davante Adams gets a shot at revenge against his former team here, but I don't think we see it going very well for the Raiders, Austin. Pretty much all last year, I thought, hey, the Raiders can win that matchup, they can win this game, and they won none of them. Because of that, I'm a little gun shy when it comes to picking the Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going with the Packers here. I feel good about kind of the football team that they've built. I think that they have some nice players at key positions. You've obviously highlighted the running backs a decent amount this year as well, Austin. What do you think that they've got in this one, and why are you going with the Packers here?
I think Jordan Love has shown that he has some flashes of tremendous potential. We see a lot of Aaron Rodgers-esque throws in terms of arm angles, slots, ability to throw the football on the run. This guy has a lot of tools to be a phenomenal quarterback in this league. Right now it's about consistency and showing it play in, play out. Now we see this quite often from his game. However, there's a couple plays where it's head scratching, his inability to make certain throws that it doesn't make sense why he can't make them. I think he's going to clean that up. The Raiders aren't the scariest team to face defensively, so I think that they're going to exploit some matchups, specifically in that secondary, and they should have a pretty nice day through the air.
Yeah, I definitely think they will. Look, the Raiders just over the last couple of years, the only thing they've really led the league in is arrests. So they've got some work to do, both in terms of the decision making on who they're bringing into the organization, but also on Sundays trying to get wins. And of course, in this case, Monday night, just hard to pick them in this matchup, honestly. Thank you everyone so much for watching. Again, I really hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are so close to 1,000 subs. You guys could literally be the 1,000th subscriber that pushes us over that mark. So again, it would be really, really awesome. Hit the like button if you did enjoy today's video. Let us know your picks down in the comment section below, and we'll catch you in the very next Utility Sports Plus video.